Gene Roddenberry rather famously described space as the final frontier. Of course, he was talking about outer space, but I'm going to say right now, I think space is in fact the final frontier. And now I'm not referring to the stuff that's out in the stars. I'm referring to the stuff that it seems like we just don't have enough of. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Russ Yoke, and welcome to Lunchbox Devotions. Space. Now, I grew up in West Virginia, as many of you all know, not a place known for its crowded urban centers. In fact, if you are a non-West Virginian, I rather strongly suspect you're going to be hard-pressed to come up with a city that actually exists within the borders of the state of West Virginia. And no, Richmond is nowhere near West Virginia. Let me just be clear, that's a different state. As empty as the state of West Virginia can be, I also have relatives who live in Wyoming. And as you go to their house, you drive through Casper, and then you get on a small, quiet highway where you will literally drive for hours and never see not just another person, but no evidence of another person. My friends who have moved to the United States from other countries, especially European countries, are often struck by a number of things that they either had not understood about the United States or had misunderstood about the United States. One of them being that Americans tend to drive more or less anywhere we go. Europeans generally think that's because Americans don't like to walk. The fact of the matter that most of them discover after they move here is the compact nature of the cities and towns that they grew up in Europe has very little bearing on the way we live in the United States, where our towns are oftentimes very spread out, very sprawling, and in order to get to wherever it is you're happening to go, walking simply isn't a practical way to do it. So when I say that we have a problem with space, here in the United States at least, I'm not really talking about a physical limitation that we have on the square inches that we all get to live in. Unless you happen to live in a place like New York City, chances are you live in one of the more spacious places for a human being to live on the planet Earth. When I say that humans are facing a crisis of space, I'm talking about the crisis of space that you and I are suffering with regard to space in our personal lives, space to be apart from this world's problems. Never before has the world crowded in so closely on each and every one of us every minute of every day, whether it is the constant, incessant, and oftentimes destructive messages that we get on our social media platforms, whether it is the fact that all of us can mostly be reached on a portable telephone 24 hours a day, whether it is the simple fact that our lives are all busy, complex, convoluted, and very short on breathing space. We're just crowded. Just following media in order to stay up with human society can be quite literally a full-time job. Just imagine what your life and my life would be like if there was no television, no YouTube, no social media, no internet, no streaming form of entertainment to be had, and that if you wanted some form of visual entertainment, you would have to go and actually see other human beings engaged in the act of theater performing live. How many more hours, how many more minutes would each of our days contain? But even with that, I think the problem of space begins inside each and every one of our heads. It's not that there is no space in our lives. It's that we're unwilling to either do what needs to be done to make the space or sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed in order to make the space. Our society has become like some weird, twisted version of the television show Hoarders, where it highlights the lives of people who gather garbage, who gather useless memorabilia, who gather odds and ends that they've discovered in various different places, either purchased or simply picked up from garbage, and can't sort for themselves the valuable versus the worthless. I mean, that's what a hoarder is, a person that fills their lives with things regardless of the value of those things. I'm going to argue that for your average American, at least living in the world that we live in today, the interior of our lives, our hearts and souls, are just some sort of very warped and distorted version of the TV show Hoarders. Because we hoard within our hearts and souls both things useful and things useless, things good, things mediocre, and things out wicked, with very little understanding of the value of the things that we are holding on to. We hold on to emotional garbage. We have no space. We have no space in our hearts and our minds to put things of true value and importance. We have no space for contemplation. We have no space for scriptural study. We have no space for prayer. We most certainly have no space for Christian meditation. The fact of the matter is, our space is already full. So what do? Well, the same thing they do to people on the TV show Hoarders. We have to sort. We have to make tough decisions. We have to ask ourselves, what things am I holding in my heart and my mind and my soul that are taking up space that could be spent or allocated, if you will, on something of value? I talk to people all the time who are holding on to anger or bitterness or fear or anxiety, and I want to say to them, of what potential value are those things to you? Especially when it comes to anger, people will say, well, I'm angry about this. And I'll say, how is that making your life better? Well, I deserve to be angry about it because this bad thing happened to me. You deserve to experience the feeling of anger? Something that blinds you to possibility, something that causes you to lose touch with hope, something that forces you into positions where you will no longer accept new information. You deserve that thing? Sounds like something that needs to be thrown out in order that you might make space for, I don't know, solutions. We live in a world that cannot discern the difference between junk and treasure, and we have become a society of emotional, mental, and most damaging spiritual hoarders who store up within the very limited space of our souls things of no value. So I say to you all today, spend some time, think hard, think long. Have you made space for what matters? And in doing so, have you sacrificed from within yourself those things that are not valuable in order to make that space? Thank you all for spending some lunchtime with me and making space in your daily schedule. God bless. See you next week.